Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. Connect data and application silos to accelerate business insights at scale. We have two data management veterans discussing the latest progress in data management technologies, working with transactional and analytical data, and how the financial services industry is addressing challenges to speed insight and innovation. To start, I'd like to expand on the brief introduction that I just gave, and to help the audience learn a bit more about each of you and your companies. Perhaps a good place to start is to talk about where we are today. The pandemic has created a unique challenge for all of us, providing the strong impetus for us to change the way we think and how we do things going forward. Can you tell me how it has impacted you and your team, along with how you have been able to navigate your respective companies? David, perhaps we start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's a great question. Yeah, like everybody, things have changed, and boy, they've changed fast. When it comes to agility and the pace of technology innovation, I think the pandemic really sort of kicked everything into overdrive. So from a company's perspective, we're based on agility, based on integration first, and being able to live in an ecosystem where we can make everything around us better and make it work better without having to replace or retrain people to learn new technologies. So we've been able to use our own technology at scale to really live with the pandemic and really do well and thrive during this really tough time. Of course, it's all about working remote. Scott and I are on webcams, and because we can't be in the same location, but business continues on. On the technology side, the pace of technology innovation, like I mentioned, was really sort of picked up. And so, what we're seeing is, a vast migration and a quick migration to the cloud, and that was already happened pre-pandemic. But it's really obviously accelerated in a time when people are working remote and access to data is more important than ever. From the customers that we work with, we're definitely seeing a mass migration to a cloud-first kind of set of services where infrastructure can be managed by somebody else so that the business can do what it does best, which is doing business without worrying about the systems to support them, letting somebody who's an expert to do that for them. So we're definitely seeing that. And as at scale as a company, we've done the same thing. So very consistent from that perspective.
Scott, can we hear your perspective?
Yeah, hey, thanks. And I think I'm going to echo a lot of the comments that they've had in terms of just the drive and the requirements that our customers are bringing our way because of, the kind of the outset of the pandemic and the impact that it's had on their businesses. I think certainly internally, one of the things we had to learn is how to continue to provide our very high touch, high level experience to our customers who, while we were remote and while they were also remote. And I'm actually happy to say that as a technology company, we've been able to embrace that really well. And in fact, I think if anything, we've seen our overall customer satisfaction ratings increase over time, which is a great testament to the tools that we've built out and really our commitment to our customers, many of whom are working on the front lines during the pandemic. And so their volumes have increased, their business requirements have increased, and it's been all hands to the pump to get things done. Similarly, and in the bio you mentioned my experience in industry, I've always been a big proponent of getting data in the hands of people who can make decisions. We've certainly seen an acceleration of those requirements as well as business models have been challenged, as overall volumes have been challenged, as system architectures have been challenged. It certainly has been a perfect storm. And we're getting a lot of calls and frankly seeing a lot of increased interest in our technology because the simplicity of architecture makes it very resilient as things change very rapidly in the marketplace. And so it's been both relearning how to work in a remote world where our customers are remote, which has been a very new thing, but also doing that while accelerating what we deliver to help them to be successful. And certainly as lessons learned from the pandemic, right, having data and being able to operate your business kind of independently is really important while things are changing rapidly around you, and having the most current version of data to make the absolute best decision for your customer is imperative. And so that's creating even more demand for the solutions that we build, and certainly for the joint solution that we're building with that scale.
That's great.
You know, Scott, you mentioned something that you know, that the power of data is more important than ever. And you know, we have several, you know, retail customers, and data sharing has become really important and a differentiator. And that, you know, one retailer you know, shares its data with its suppliers. And which is a big reason why thrive in the pandemic, because they have their 9,000 suppliers, you know, working on their behalf to make sure that the right products are in the right stores across the country, depending on markets. And as opposed to trying to do that internally by themselves, by sharing that data with other partners, business partners, both internal and external, has allowed them to really scale that out. So they're scaling decision making. And another customer of ours, you know, moved to the cloud about a year ago, and I remember having a conversation saying, you know, he said, you know, Dave, if we didn't move to the cloud when we did, we would have been out of business, because we were already having trouble scaling business pre-pandemic with, you know, trying to stand up different servers. But when we moved to the cloud, we were able just to basically flip a switch. And the business, literally, their data grew 100% a year over year during the pandemic. It doubled, and there's just no way they could have actually stayed in business if that was the case, and they didn't have that kind of agility.
And Dave, I think you actually hit on something, and I'll riff off of what you said, because I think it's really important, because you and I both have played in the scalability business in our careers for a very long time. And I really think one of the key learnings I've got coming out of this latest crisis, scalability isn't just about size and volume anymore, but it really is about the number of connections and the network effect of how you can distribute those connections and distribute analytic decision making along the way. And if you can't scale along all of those axes, having lots of data under management isn't always going to be the answer that gets you to success.
I love that. Totally agree.
No, that is great. I think that's a perfect kind of segue to financial services, where I think we have all those challenges and that you all mentioned. So, like, organizations have been trying to use technology to, you know, help the business with, you know, gaining better insight, and also to use that information to make better business decisions. You know, Dave, perhaps you can talk about the challenges and the evolution of various technologies and approaches between, like, databases to data warehouses to business intelligence and reporting and so forth. And love to hear your perspective on it.
Well, you know, I've been around for a while, Mike. So, so I saw the days of the mainframe reporting, where you had the paper with the green lines and the perforated edges. And that was how you got your data, was, you know, through, you know, these perforated pages that folded upon themselves. And then it was a while before you saw relational databases and you saw the growth of the data warehouse. And then you saw that morph into MPP systems. And then when I was at Yahoo, we saw the birth of the data lake in the form of Hadoop. That's how I got to know Scott later on, when Scott actually ran, you know, technology for Hortonworks, which was a spin out from that Yahoo team. And things have started to really move fast. And my big takeaway from all this is that technology is moving so fast, and the pace of innovation has been increasing to the point where I think it's really hard, if you're not in the business of being in data warehousing or in data management. It's hard to do that yourself. It's very hard to keep up with that pace, because it's like quicksand. Things are changing under your feet. And so, what I'm really excited about and working with Scott again at InterSystems and that scale is that we can insulate the customer from all that change, so that the customer can do what they do best, which is serve customers and make money and reduce costs, while making customers happy, versus having to worry about scaling their data infrastructure. In other words, they can make decisions and scale out those decisions internally and externally, without having to worry about how the data is getting from point A to point B. So I just think that with today's speed of technology innovation, trying to keep up is a really hard thing to do if you're not in the business of data management.
I think that's great. Scott, perhaps to you, like what challenges and initiatives are you seeing customers talking to you today about?
Well, we get a lot of different issues, whether it be I need to have more relevant real-time information for understanding my risk position or my compliance position, or understanding how to interact with a customer in a reasonable fashion that's relevant to the customer's thinking. And I think the gaps that I would try to generalize and the things that I'm hearing most about are really about removing silos from an organization. Now, I almost pause when I say that because, again, the industry has been talking about removing silos through various instantiations for a very, very long time. Whether it be, the enterprise data warehousing of get rid of data marts and put everything together in one place, or remove organizational silos and look at corporate data so you can understand a customer across all the touch points, and kind of anywhere in between. I would argue that even though we've been talking about that for a long time, the problem has only gotten larger and worse for many reasons. One reason, of course, is it's just kind of human nature. I've got a problem to solve. Give me the data I need. Let me go solve the problem and move on. And it's very pragmatic. Another reason, of course, is the emergence of cloud, which is a great tool that enables agility and application deployment and so on. But now it's very easy for a department manager with a credit card to go spin up a departmental application and create an application silo in addition to a data silo that's inside of an organizational silo. And so the point is, removing silos becomes a really big deal. Gets back to the network effect and the connectivity that I talked about earlier as being a way to differentiate. And if you know that these silos are going to happen and are going to exist, but if you can figure out a way to create provenance and connect at least the data together to blur the lines of those silos, then you can get access to a lot more information in real time, and that's very helpful. I think the second thing that happens is, and we've seen this, especially with the emergence of the pandemic, it's almost like the olden days of business continuity. Oh, what happens if I lose my data center? I'm going to practice and I'm going to spin up, and in 5 seconds, everything's going to run. The pandemic created something akin to a data center outage, but it's a very different problem. It's like, gee, the price of oil futures contracts went negative for the first time ever. We never built that into our application. What happens to the pricing model? How do we handle that as a margin debit in an account? The volume has spiked to 5x for 25 minutes. Can our systems actually roll through that? And because of these sudden and unexpected changes to the system, anywhere there's a silo, there's kind of a boundary, and that's a place where things can break down. And so removing silos, not only to gain access and connectivity to data for a better picture of what's happening in the business, but also to make the systems themselves more resilient, has become increasingly important. And so, when I'm talking with customers and prospects about how we can help them partner, in addition to providing great service and support and partnering with them and solving the problem, the real thing that is appealing now is the simplicity of architecture and the underlying resilience that we can provide by simplifying that architecture across all the different data domains, providing connectivity, providing multi-model capabilities for any kind of data, and then on the back end, delivering the analytic content of that data to end users through self-service mechanisms like our partnership with AdScale.
Oh, thank you.
Love that.
All right, so we're going to shift gears a little bit. You both are well-known leaders in the data management space. I'm going to maybe talk a little bit about that. What are some of the more exciting developments happening now in data management. Dave, perhaps you can start.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's a couple sort of technology trends, and then something that's come to mind is like also just a different way or different approach of organizing around data. So from a technology perspective, what I've seen out there is that you can start to see a lot of vendors starting to combine analytics and visualization directly into their products. And so I think that that's interesting. And a lot of what we're doing together with InterSystems and AtScale is really sort of giving you that level of integration of combining analytics with the transactional to give you a seamless experience without having to sort of be a systems integrator and put that together yourself. The second sort of technology trend I see is like, I'm seeing like AI and ML move from a one-off to more in something that's embedded in an application. So, you began with sort of the expert data scientist who is really project-based. Somebody gives them a problem, and the data scientist or team of data scientists goes off and tries to think big thoughts and builds models and trains those models and comes up with, voila, here's the answer. And that's really sort of morphed into more auto ML platforms where now a citizen data scientist can let some of the automation and of the software platform choose the models and train the models for them so that it's easier to get an answer at the end of the day. But I think that's that's not the end point. The end point really is taking ML and AI and embedding that within the analytics application itself, so that new insights, new data from data, predictions, new features automatically appear within the analytics platform based on the knowledge of that end-to-end system. So I think you're going to see AI and BI, artificial intelligence and business intelligence start to merge and morph together, and you're going to start to see a lot of this this machine learning be able to be embedded in the applications rather than forcing customers to have to do that on their own on a one-off basis. So then on the organizational side, a lot of our customers are talking about, hey, you know what? The data analyst as a job title is no more. Rather than hiring a data analyst, we expect everybody in the company to be a data analyst. So it's moving from data analyst as a job title to data analyst as a job function and a function and requirement. And that's really exciting to me because that means that everyone is a data analyst. It doesn't matter what your role is. It's you're going to be expected to use data to make a data-driven decision. And that's going to put all kinds of new pressure on people like Scott and myself, where it's our responsibility to allow those users to be able to use data to make decisions, which means it needs to be more accessible. It needs to be fresher. It needs to be more relevant and more user-friendly. It needs to be analytics-friendly in order for ordinary humans to be able to use data without having all the data engineering skills that we really require people to have today. So I think that's a sea change and a real opportunity for technology vendors like ourselves to really step up to the plate and make everybody a data analyst.
Oh, that's really insightful there. Scott, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm going to build off, and Dave stole my thunder, because I think also that AI and BI kind of merge into a thing, which is actually really great, because when you think about the power of machine learning models and AI is really creating highly accurate and sophisticated models for predicting things. And we're talking about predictions that could be orders of magnitude more accurate than the old way of doing things. So that's a really good thing. But we also think typically of BI as being where the rubber meets the road with the business analysts or with the folks who are talking with the customer in real time. And so merging better predictions with where the rubber meets the road, that's a really big deal. I would extend what they've said, though, in that what we all need to provide for is the ability not only to do that seamlessly, but also to do that seamlessly at the edge, where we're actually at the point of interaction. And 5 milliseconds for the speed of light is too long to get a real answer. And you don't want to just park some average prediction out there because you're no longer going to be relevant. And so I think kind of solving that three-way problem is where you'll see a lot of innovation around technology. And I think we can't forget, as technology vendors, that we also need to build in traceability for the trust, both of the consumer as well as the purveyor of these predictions, because some of these models are counterintuitive. The value behind them is you actually learn something that wasn't particularly intuitive, but is highly accurate. And so building in the provenance and the trust to trace back to where that model came from and how the model worked, and be able to track accuracy over time is going to ensure that people are more comfortable in using and deploying those solutions in real time. And we're starting to see some early days of that in some of the industries we serve even today, where we can improve patient care, we can improve the creditworthiness prediction, by an order of magnitude. And now these are very small numbers, but when you talk about the impact either on outcome of care or the impact on the overall gross margin of a transaction, this can be a huge benefit to those who take advantage of the tech.
Okay, great.
Love it.
All right. So we spoke a little bit about, I guess, at scale and InterSystems coming together and forming a new product. Scott, perhaps you can maybe talk about why InterSystems chose at scale.
Well, certainly this was an area that we felt was really important. I said earlier, where I think kind of scalability is about connectivity and delivering answers as much as it is about data volume. When I looked at the portfolio that InterSystems brings to market, I think we have, obviously, you would expect, I would think we have some great advantage over the competition in our ability to support multiple different kinds of data in a native multi-model environment, while delivering in-memory capabilities and speed, and a very unique interoperability use case. So we can create a really flexible and highly customized data fabric for our customers, and our customers have depended on that core technology for some time. The next piece, though, is really delivering the value of that to the front lines, and thinking about not only delivering analytics, delivering data, but delivering a tool set where empowered business users can actually prove their own hypotheses and figure out how they want to drive their piece of the business in a very independent but structured approach. This is where these solutions fit together extremely nicely. Kind of the core performance and flexibility of the InterSystems Iris platform, and the delivery vehicle, and kind of the ease of use and intuitive way to actually deliver to that end user product, leveraging the at scale stuff. It just seemed like a really natural fit. And we got together and we talked about the art of the possible, and we jointly committed to a whole bunch of really great engineering to make for a seamless experience. It just felt like, kind of a custom-made glove that fit right on the hand.
Great, thank you. Dave, perhaps you can extend upon that. So, I guess in your words, why should customers be excited about this partnership?
Yeah, it's like as what Scott said, it's a hand in glove. I think it's a great recipe. We've taken our two strengths, and we combined them together, and then sort of baked it into a nice unified experience of combining best of breed transactional with best of breed analytics, with domain expertise and financial services and healthcare, and then sprinkled on a dash of data integration know-how from InterSystems. So I mean, to me, it's like it just provides it provides a platform for us to deliver increased value, not just bringing data together and surfacing it, like Scott said, but really adding value to make that data usable for ordinary humans to make real decisions to change the business. And it gives us also a platform of taking advantage of that trend where we can inject AI and ML into this business intelligence experience, into the business experience, and provides the domain expertise that InterSystems brings to the table when it comes to these subject areas, because they understand how the data, what the data means, they understand how it should be stored, how it should be architected, and they understand the domain enough to be able to add the models on top of that data using a technology like AtScale that makes it then consumable by the front line. And I just think it's like that last mile of connecting that last mile consumer to all the IP that has been developed over the years with InterSystems. It's just an awesome, it's a very exciting sort of combination. And so I'm very excited to see how customers use this and get value.
No, I think both products, from what I hear, has a lot of great functionality in themselves and provide a integrated solution independently. But now, as we bring these two together, it gives you a very holistic view of around your data and a solution that basically can span across different personas, different functions, and keep giving you that, allowing folks to just use the data versus kind of worrying about all the individual pieces and putting it all together. Sounds
Yeah, love
very appealing.
Right on.
Okay, so where do you guys see this all going into the future? Dave, perhaps we start with you.
I think where we see it going is, I think when we get the power of sort of connecting more users, democratizing access to that data, I think it's going to create new demands for new types of data, for which we can we now have a platform for delivering it. And like I mentioned before, and Scott's mentioned, I think that combining some machine learning, so automation, automated learning into this on top of this data, and then now having a way of delivering those insights to users without them having to ask for it, is going to help those users make better decisions without turning them into data junkies. So I think that what we're talking about today is like laying that groundwork, laying that fabric so that people can self-serve. But once we sort of have that communication line hooked into the user, that pipe sort of established, it's just the beginning of all kinds of great things that we can have flow through that pipe to add value to business and to customers.
That's great. Scott, would you like to add anything to that?
I think, in addition to the work that we've done, certifying the technology, making sure that it's rock solid and ready to go, and, doing all and high performance, and kind of checks all the boxes of what we set the expectation between us when we started the partnership, and all that is work that's ongoing and we'll continue to invest in. I think that there's even additional work that we can do to kind of turn and eat our own dog food and leverage some machine learning and AI as we start to see the query patterns and as we start to see the combinations that users are actually deploying with this technology. We can use that to actually learn inside of our own schemas to make it more effective for them, to make it more performant for them, and actually to create some predictive models that they may not have originally expected. So, what we actually discussed here and what we're launching in the marketplace as a partnership, and both from a technology and go-to-market perspective, isn't just a once and done thing, but I think it's an ongoing thing where we'll continue to have additional value that we create as we learn from what we've been able to deliver and deploy. And I think because of the breadth of the data that our customers at InterSystems are actually using, combined with this tool set, we'll come up with some really interesting new use cases for creating self-learning schemas and self-optimizing schemas that will allow our customers not only to create better analytics and create better decisions inside of their businesses, to distribute that decision-making to the right place inside of their businesses, but also will help them to optimize their cloud footprint and spend, because we won't be, pre-calculating every different combination of everything, but we'll actually only selectively be preparing the data that we think is relevant to the scenarios that they're building. And by that, we'll actually, with a very minimum kind of storage and CPU overhead, be able to really deliver them high performance predictive analytics.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. It's like we're really talking about creating a flywheel effect here. Just to continue with the self learning, right? So as we learn from customers, and then we actually deliver more of what they're looking for, they're able to make more decisions. We are able to learn more and deliver more value. So I think we can create a real flywheel effect to create to create increasing levels of value. The more we learn, and the more the platform gets used.
That's fantastic. All right. See here that there's a few questions that were sent in. So let's see if we can answer a few of them. So the first one is for Scott. Um, how does this relate to InterSystems BI?
Actually, that's a really great question. So this is an extension of and an expansion of the overall theme for InterSystems BI. So InterSystems BI currently includes some visualization technology, as well as some materialized view or materialized cubing technology. So for something that is very well known, we're very well documented, and repeated heavily, you can go instantiate and build out some of those analytics and create some visualizations on top of it. This kind of sits beyond that and says, on top of that, along with all of the native data structures, what do you want to build yourself? And what do you want to build virtually yourself? And so this fits nicely into that chain. When I talked about the longer term roadmap and where we'll be able to learn from what's been done, I expect that InterSystems BI will be able to learn from some of the virtualizations that are coming in from the at-scale technology to pre-instantiate and really kind of load the deck so you can have much better performance and optimization of CPU utilization. And so it's really integrated with the whole breadth of our offer and shouldn't be considered one thing or the other, but really just an addition.
Great, thank you. I think the next one is for Dave. Do these approaches require replacing existing technologies?
Wow, good question. So I think I alluded to this when we at the very start. When we founded at scale, I mean, we took a very much an integration first approach, and that meant that we didn't go out and build our own visualization platform, because we saw that that Tableau and Excel, were tools that were already in heavy use, and that there were entire companies built around that. So we decided to make sure that our data could flow through those applications into applications that people already knew how to consume, so that they could leverage the most out of the platform. On the back end, we didn't decide to build and ingest data and load it into our own proprietary analytical database. What we said is that there already are great databases out there and great data platforms, and rather than moving that data around, let's leverage those platforms and just make them work better for analytics. So we sit on top of Iris. We don't move data out of Iris into our own data store, because that would create latency and complexity, and also create scalability problems, like what Scott was saying about data silos. Get rid of the silos. So Iris is a fantastic data platform, so we can already leverage it, but just make it work even better for analytics. So absolutely not. We will not be replacing existing technologies, because when you do that, you have to retrain users, you have to retool and rewrite everything you have. And that's not our intent. Our intent is to use what you already have and just make it work better.
Great, thank you very much.
And I would extend that and say, as an extension of the value prop that we saw jointly, is the flexibility that at-scale has in plugging into the visualization tool of your choice, right? So you can use the Iris BI tool. That's great. Different departments, different organizations. Most of our customers have multiple different visualization tools that they want to use, and so now you can plug into whichever one you're most comfortable with. You can play the data where it lies, and you can play the visualization exactly as it's expected. So that reduces the overall cost and impact to rolling out these solutions.
Perfect.
All right, so the next question, who are the main users of this technology? Maybe Dave, would you like to start with that one?
Well, for me, it's I hope it's everyone. But I'm going to probably turn that back over to Scott, because like my goal is to have everybody be making decisions with the data, and down to the person who's in the line of business who has a decision to be made. But Scott, I'll let you get into dive into deeper detail there.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you, Dave. I hope everybody is using it, because that means everybody has access to data, and they're making business decisions based on what the data tell them. Now, whether or not they actually know that they're using it, I actually don't care, and hope that they don't have to know that they're using it, because it should just be streamlined. They should be pulling up whatever application they're used to using, or whatever Tableau screen. All of a sudden now they see all of this other data, which they understand because it's been cataloged and set up for them. And they just have at it, right? So there certainly are the line of business, kind of the action takers, business owners, absolutely want them on board using it. Again, they may not know that they're using this tool, because they may be seeing it through a veneer of a tool that they're already accustomed to. However, they're going to have access to more different kinds of data universes, and they're probably going to have access to data in more of a real-time fashion than they did before, which will help them in building out the different scenarios that they need to build out. And certainly from an operations perspective, the folks who are setting up the access controls and the privacy controls and all that kind of stuff, obviously they will be users of the suite. And again, it's very flexible and easy for them to go set up the standards and publish and deploy. So certainly our DBAs, architects, and system administrators will be users, but ultimately everyone in the business should be a user, whether they know it or not.
Well, love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the view of allowing multiple personas to work within your system and utilizing data is a great approach, right? Because you don't want to have to be dependent on one particular person or set of a group to basically facilitate that. And so, the approach that you both are taking is very insightful and very the way that I think helps organizations achieve a lot more agility as they move forward. Last question that I see here: is this joint offering available now? Who would like to take that one?
The answer is absolutely yes. So we're actually out now with a couple of early trial customers, beta customers, and we expect to be shipping in production this quarter. So absolutely yes, it's available. And if there's any interest been stimulated here, please give us a call. We'll add you to the beta list, and be glad to show you all the good work that we're up to.
All right, Dave, Scott, thank you both. To the audience, thank you for joining today's webinar. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation and found it very insightful. As a reminder, you will receive a link to the replay tomorrow. And if you'd like to learn more about InterSystems Iris and Adaptive Analytics, please email info@intersystems.com. Thank you.